Trump declares war on immigrants with a 200-year-old law. Chaos looms over America. March 18, 2025. It's a moment that feels ripped from the pages of a dystopian novel, yet here we are, watching it unfold in real time. Donald Trump, the polarizing figure who has once again seized the reins of the United States, has just dropped a bombshell that's sending shockwaves through the nation and beyond. In a move that defies belief, he's dusted off a law older than the steam engine, a law forged in the crucible of war over 2 centuries ago, and wielded it as a weapon against millions of people living within America's borders. The target? The Hispanic community. The weapon? The Alien Enemies Act of 1798. The stakes? Nothing less than the soul of a nation. Picture this: a law signed by John Adams, the second president of the United States, back when the ink on the Constitution was barely dry. A law born in an era of muskets and powdered wigs, designed to protect a fledgling republic from foreign invaders during times of declared war. It was invoked during the War of 1812, then again in the First and Second World Wars, each time to round up enemy aliens deemed a threat to national security. In the 1940s, it was the legal backbone for one of America's darkest chapters, the internment of over 120 Japanese Americans, herded into camps under the shadow of wartime hysteria. And now, in 2025, Donald Trump has yanked this relic from the history books and thrust it into the modern age, declaring himself a wartime president not against a foreign army, but against the very people who pick the crops, build the homes, and fuel the economy of the United States. Let that sink in. The United States is not at war. There are no bombs falling on Washington, no enemy fleets on the horizon. Yet Trump claims the country is under siege not by tanks or missiles, but by what he calls an invasion of immigrants. His justification? A shadowy Venezuelan gang known as Tren de Aragua, a name that's been whispered in fearful tones across headlines and border towns alike. This group, undeniably dangerous in its home country and beyond, has become Trump's boogeyman, a convenient scapegoat to paint an entire community as a mortal threat. They're not just criminals, Trump thundered in a recent speech, his voice dripping with the bombast that's become his trademark. They're alien invaders, a hybrid army tearing at the fabric of our nation. And with those words, he's unleashed a legal nightmare that could see millions deported, detained, or disappeared without a trial, without evidence, without mercy. This isn't hyperbole. The Alien Enemies Act, as Trump interprets it, gives him near dictatorial powers over anyone he deems a threat. Forget due process. Forget the courts. If Trump points a finger and says, "You're Tren de Aragua, that's it, you're gone," packed onto a plane, shipped to a maximum security prison like Guantanamo, or simply vanished into the bureaucratic abyss, no need for proof, no need for a judge. Just the word of one man, a man who now holds the power to decide who belongs in America and who doesn't. And here's the kicker: you don't even have to be Venezuelan, Mexican, Guatemalan, Colombian. If you've got an accent Trump doesn't like, or a skin tone that doesn't fit his vision of real America, you're fair game. The implications are staggering. Imagine a family, let's call them the Garcias, living in a modest home in Texas. The father works construction. The mother cleans offices. Their kids go to public school. They're immigrants, maybe undocumented, maybe with green cards, but they've built a life here. Then, one night, there's a knock at the door. Federal agents storm in, shouting about Tren de Aragua. No evidence, no warrant, just Trump's say-so under this ancient law. The Garcias are handcuffed, their kids screaming as they're torn apart. Next stop? Deportation or worse. A barbed wire cell in Guantanamo Bay. And it's not just the Garcias. Multiply that scene by thousands, by millions, and you've got the makings of a humanitarian catastrophe unlike anything America has seen since the Japanese internment camps. But why? Why resurrect a war-era relic when the U.S. already has an arsenal of immigration laws on the books? Laws that let authorities arrest and deport criminals, drug traffickers, gang members, violent offenders with evidence, and a trial. Drive drunk in many states as an immigrant, and you're out. Commit a felony, and you're gone. The system works, albeit imperfectly, under the rule of law. So why this? The answer is chillingly simple: absolute power. Trump doesn't want the hassle of courts or the burden of proof. He wants to point, accuse, and purge unrestrained by judges, Congress, or the Constitution itself. This isn't about crime, it's about control. The numbers tell a stark story. In 2023, U.S. Customs and Border Protection logged over 2.5 million arrests at the border. A staggering figure, yes, but dig deeper. Only 1% of those apprehended had serious criminal records. 1%. The rest? Families fleeing violence, workers chasing a paycheck, asylum seekers begging for safety. They're not saints. Some broke immigration laws to get here, but they're not gangsters either. They're the backbone of America's fields, factories, and kitchens. Yet Trump's narrative casts them all as invaders, as alien enemies, lumping the innocent with the guilty in a sweeping crusade that smells more of racism than reason. And the Hispanic community knows it. This isn't a vague immigration policy. It's a declaration of war on them, on Mexicans, Salvadorans, Guatemalans, Venezuelans, anyone with roots south of the Rio Grande. Trump's rhetoric has been building to this for years. Remember his first campaign, when he called immigrants rapists and murderers? Or his presidency, when he railed against an invasion at the border? Now he's making good on those promises, turning words into weapons. Protests like the Day Without Immigrants marches could be next in his crosshairs. Under this law, he could label demonstrators Tren de Aragua sympathizers and round them up en masse. Dissent crushed, rights erased, all under the guise of national security. The historical echoes are deafening. The Alien Enemies Act isn't just a legal footnote, it's a Pandora's box of oppression. When it locked up Japanese Americans in the 1940s, it left a scar on the nation's conscience, a stain of fear-driven racism that took decades to acknowledge. Now, Trump's cracking that box wide open, and the ghosts of the past are spilling out. Only this time, it's not Japanese families in the crosshairs, it's Hispanic ones. And he's not stopping at the undocumented. Legal residents, even citizens with immigrant roots, could be next. Trump's flirted with stripping birthright citizenship before only the Supreme Court stopped him. What happens when he finds a way around that too? But there's hope, at least for now. Hours after Trump's announcement, a federal judge slammed the brakes on this madness, issuing a temporary block. Civil rights groups like the ACLU and Democracy Forward wasted no time, filing lawsuits that argue the obvious. The Alien Enemies Act applies only in declared wars, not peacetime witch hunts. The U.S. isn't at war with Venezuela or Latin America. Trump's invasion is a fiction, a fever dream to justify his purge. This isn't a victory yet, just a reprieve. The courts will decide in the coming days whether this block holds or crumbles, and with it, the fate of millions hangs in the balance. The backlash is growing. Even some of Trump's allies are uneasy. A Republican congressman recently snapped, "America doesn't have kings, and I won't bow to Donald Trump." The public split, many cheer his hardline stance, whipped into a frenzy by his fiery speeches. Others see a dictator in the making, a man testing how far he can bend a democracy before it breaks. And break it might. If this law stands, what's next? Trump's already hinted at using the Insurrection Act to silence protest citizens or not. He's floated sending immigrants to Guantanamo, families included. Step by step, he's carving a path to unchecked rule, where his word trumps the Constitution. This is bigger than immigration. It's about power, prejudice, and the kind of country America wants to be. For the Hispanic community, undocumented workers, legal residents, citizens alike, it's a fight for survival. For the nation, it's a reckoning. Will the courts, the last bulwark of democracy, hold firm? Or will Trump's vision, a land purged of alien enemies, ruled by his whim, become reality? The clock is ticking. The battle is just beginning. Stay tuned. This is far from over.